So I just watched Men, and it was kinda fucking egregious. I didn't realize this was super divisive when I started watching it, but by the end, I could definitely tell why so many people are up in arms about it. This is another one of those artsy horror films trying to seem much deeper than it actually is. It tries to have themes and allegories about a bunch of different things, and not surprisingly, it juggles way too much to the point that it can't quite stick the landing. Some will find it preachy and annoying to sit through, while others will just think if a movie blatantly says what its themes are, then that's enough to make it good. Clearly, I fall into the former camp. I feel like most of these horror movies fall victim to the same thing, trying way too hard to seem allegorical and losing its grasp on the narrative. This movie makes no sense when you try to rationalize its baseline story, which I would imagine would be the point, but if that's the case, why have a narrative to begin with? Why start off pretending we're in some sort of reality that we can relate to, and then drop it later on so you can focus more on the wacky symbolism? I guess I just answered my own question. In any case, this movie suffers from that big time. It wants to be this grand allegory about female trauma and men's incapability to understand their daily struggle. But it's ironic this is the underlying theme, and yet the main female lead is so bland and uninteresting. I don't think Jessie Buckley is a bad actress, but a lot of the time she just seems so bored and uninterested in the events unfolding. And maybe this is just my toxic masculinity talking, but I would like to imagine that anyone of any gender would find these situations terrifying. Like if I saw the naked man who has been stalking me for quite some time, not even 6 feet away from me, I wouldn't react to it like I'm trying to solve a math equation. I'd be screaming my head off telling him to get the fuck away from me. But I guess I'll just never understand the female mind like Alex Garland does. Kinda interesting that this movie about men not understanding the female perspective is written and directed by a man. Now it makes sense as to why the main character isn't really a character. She's just a tool for the plot to have all these excuses to make weird and out there concepts. This is the same exact reason as to why something like Aronofsky's Mother fails at its understanding of its grander themes. Sure, it's tackling such big and touchy issues, but what exactly is it saying outside of the painfully obvious? What's the point of bringing up these issues if you're not going to explore them in any meaningful way? And in Men's case, what the fuck is it even trying to say? Like the twist is that the guy she's been seeing around is jealous she can give birth, but then he's able to birth himself, and it turns out that it was her dead ex-boyfriend who committed suicide at the beginning the whole time? I feel like I just watched an A24 movie written by a robot. Maybe this is a case of me having to watch it again in order to truly understand its grander themes, but if that's the case, the movie needs to be interesting the first time around, so then I would want to watch it a second time. You know, Garland? That's how humans work. I don't want to sit through a movie again if it wasn't fun the first time. I know you made a movie on robots before, but I didn't think you were actually a robot incapable of understanding basic human emotions. You know what? I'm gonna say it. I know this is going to sound ludicrous and maybe even a bit hyperbolic, but I'm gonna say it. Men explores its themes as well as Don't Look Up. Yeah, I said it. Alright, that's a bit harsh, but I'm sorry. It's true. This movie has nothing substantial to say on this matter. Same as Don't Look Up. Its most pivotal scenes seem more for shock value than actually saying anything to really make the audience think. Same as Don't Look Up. I guess this movie only fucks up on a smaller scale, whereas Don't Look Up is an abject failure from any angle you look at it, but still, it's the same school of thought. The filmmakers had one idea and ran with it thinking it was enough to make themselves seem smart and edgy. And it really pisses me off, because I know this movie could work. Maybe it's just the optimist in me, but I truly believe a movie like this can work. I mean, hell, I can think of 2 films right off the bat that actually deal with this subject in a unique and interesting way. And fortunately, they do not fall apart into meaningless symbolic bullshit. It's quite funny that Jessie Buckley stars in this, because she also starred in I'm Thinking of Ending Things, another high-concept horror film that explores similar themes about gendered perspectives. The main character is a figment of a guy's imagination. He's imagining a scenario where he brings a woman he saw once to his parents and imagining the life they could have lived together. It's dark, it's creepy, it's depressing, it explores the idea of men not truly understanding women in a way that isn't one-sided and actually makes you think about it in a way where you don't feel lectured. It's everything you want from a horror movie like it. It's also got fantastic performances from every actor involved, phenomenal cinematography, and is basically way too good to be streaming exclusively on Netflix. But it is admittedly a bit of a long and grueling picture to sit through. Well, you know a very popular movie that explores similar themes that isn't grueling to sit through? Silence of the Lambs. Yeah, Silence of the Lambs is a great film that actually got me thinking about the difference between male and female perspectives. There's several scenes in the movie where it's from Clarice's point of view. All of her colleagues are staring at her and judging her and making her feel like a lamb in the slaughter. There's a very specific scene where she's asking several men to leave a room, and I completely expected there to be some jerk-ass making a sly comment on how she's a woman and that she doesn't belong in this line of work. But you know what actually followed? Silence. Complete and utter silence as they all quietly shuffle out of the room. And that to me spoke volumes more than if any of them had opened their mouths. It was shocking, it was uncomfortable, it was loads more impactful to me as a man than anything said in this movie. And Silence of the Lambs isn't even about that sort of stuff. There's loads more themes and symbolism at play in this movie. And also, Silence of the Lambs, directed by a man. I'm Thinking of Ending Things, directed by a man. Would it have been more impactful if a woman had written and directed this movie? Probably, but also women wrote and directed fresh, and let's just say that movie was complete ass. So it's not the issue of men not understanding women or women not understanding men, it's hack writers not understanding characters. But with all that said, that's only one part of the movie. If it's not obvious already, clearly I'm very passionate about a movie's writing. More often than not, if a movie fails in the writing department, I don't care if the visuals or the music are top-notch, the film suffers in my opinion. There are clearly exceptions to this rule, but I feel like a movie's writing has to have some merit to it. But how do I feel about the film's other qualities? It's only fair to discuss them since they're just as important when talking about a film, and I'm gonna be honest, as much as I hate the movie as a whole, I don't hate certain aspects. The cinematography, for example, is admittedly quite excellent. The movie looks good. A ton of shots looked nice and everything flowed very nicely. The music was also quite creepy and added a much-deserved atmospheric feeling to the movie. There's a scene in a tunnel towards the beginning that actually used sounds throughout the rest of the movie's score. That was basically all it did and had no bearing on the story, but hey, as I said, the writing is quite garbage, so it only makes sense that the best scene in the movie had nothing to do with the overall plot. Even the acting, for the most part, I had no problem with. I mean, Jessie Buckley was quite drab, but for the most part, she had some decent scenes. Honestly, the one thing I will absolutely commend this film on for doing amazingly was Rory Kinnear'S performances. You know, that guy who was always just kinda there next to M in the James Bond movies? Yeah, it turns out he can carry a film on his back. The dude played like 6 different characters and all of them were fantastic. You honestly wouldn't be able to tell unless someone told you. I had to be told it was the same guy in just different makeup, and it blew my mind. If he wasn't saying such shit dialogue and birthing himself 4 times actually amounted to anything, then I'd say his devotion to these performances was well worth it. But alas, 'twas not. Despite all these things I could compliment the film on, the overall product just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Because yes, the music and cinematography are excellent, but what greater purpose do they serve? It's kinda hard to truly appreciate a movie's visuals when it's accompanied by the director going, "Look at me, I'm controversial, look at me, I'm interesting." As I said, this was about on par with something like Darrenovsky's Mother and even Don't Look Up. It thinks it's some grandiose allegory on some touchy subject, but it forgets to bury that allegory underneath some unique story and with interesting characters. It's not even like I disagree with the movie, but I'm tired of movies I agree with. I want to be challenged. I want to think. Hell, this is A24 for crying out loud. I trusted these guys to give me exactly that. The only challenging part about this movie was trying not to laugh when Rory Kinnear inflates and births a different version of himself. How am I supposed to not find this funny? Maybe I'm being a tad harsh with the rating, but even if I wanted to sit through it again, which I don't, I doubt my score would go up in any drastic way. I don't like this movie. I think it wastes its concept for the sake of seeming like one of the good ones, without actually being, quote, one of the good ones. If you want a better high-concept horror film starring Jessie Buckley, watch I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And if you want to watch a movie that deals with feminist themes in a way that doesn't feel like it's lecturing you, watch Silence of the Lambs. Anyway, don't listen to this movie saying that all men are pigs. Doesn't it realize that the Slotlight.com chip blender guy exists? How could anyone say all men are evil when this guy exists? Checkmate, liberals.